Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to our July MBC Impact Series event. My name is Casey Volpe, and I manage MBC initiatives here at Susan G. Komen. For those that are new, the programming for this series is envisioned as a year-long conversation where every month we tackle a new topic. And today our focus is going to be MBC 101, Ask a Navigator. So we have two fantastic individuals for you to talk with today. The first is Caitlin Martin, a patient navigator with Komen, and the second is Carly Dixon, an advocate living with metastatic breast cancer. So before we begin, I just want to take a moment and thank our 2024 MBC Impact Series sponsors. So thank you to AstraZeneca, Gilead, GE Healthcare, and Merck, and also our signature sponsors, Walgreens and Daiichi Sankyo. Just a housekeeping note, while our speakers are talking and as we move through the event, please post your questions in the Q&A feature in Zoom. We'll get to as many as we can. Please remember our speakers are not able to provide individual medical advice and are only speaking to their experiences. Towards the end of the programming today, we'll be dropping a survey link in the chat, and your feedback is so important to helping us create these events and know what topics are valuable for you, so don't be shy. Now, first things first, I have the absolute privilege of introducing you all to Carly Dixon. Carly is a Texas native, a mother of an amazing 22-year-old son and two great rescue dogs. I have two rescue dogs too, Carly. Carly grew up in a Texas cattle ranching family and went to Texas Tech University, where she earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in journalism, and she now lives in the DFW area. She also unfortunately received a de novo stage 4 diagnosis in January 2021. Since being diagnosed, Carly elected to retire early from her 30-year technology sales career in order to slow life down and focus on family and friends and thriving. Carly's surprise diagnosis inspired her to learn as much as possible about breast cancer and take every opportunity to educate friends and acquaintances about breast cancer prevention, encouraging monthly self-exams, and to be a great example of a stage 4 thriver. Carly enjoys traveling, golfing, taking long walks with dogs, gardening, volunteering in her community, and spending time with family and friends. Carly, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Casey. I am very to be here. I know how a similar event to this really me 3.5 years ago. Sure, you all have the same. And I also have the pleasure of introducing my co-panelist, Caitlin Martin. So Caitlin has been an oncology patient now for almost 3 years, working exclusively with cancer patients. Her academic background, theology, Bible, as her bachelor's and master's degree are in the pastoral realm. She has a great passion for helping patients connect with the resources they need so that the burden of the daily needs and emotional stress is lightened. The barriers that arise, keeping them from getting the treatment they need eliminated. She's been married to her husband for 18 years, and they have 2 adopted, precious, special needs children. Caitlin loves animals, mountains, music, and her family. 7 years ago, her husband was with cancer, and a 33-year-old, it wasn't anything expected to encounter in their lives. They were without any kind of net and came across obstacles along his chemo journey that wouldn't have existed had they had the support of patient navigation. That experience helped to ignite a passion and create the drive to help others walk through the cancer journey as stress-free as possible. Thank you, Caitlin. I'm excited for our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. So, Caitlin, our first question that came in, I'd love to hear your perspective about this, but as a patient navigator, know that you patients navigate the health system, but this can be a lot of different things. Can you explain in simple terms the roles, responsibilities, and functions of a patient navigator like yourself, who's been working with someone who has a metastatic breast cancer diagnosis?
Absolutely. So first of all, can you hear me okay? I know we were having some audio issues. Are we good?
You
You
are
can hear,
clear
okay,
now.
okay. So really, there's so much we can do as Komen navigators. And to break it down, we can help someone who is walking the MBC journey with information and educational resources. And those things can help them better understand their diagnosis, as well as the treatment options that are available. And that can include clinical trial information. That's another big kind of wing of this that is oftentimes unexplored. And that's something we can definitely help patients get connected with. We can also help them get connected with financial support. As we know, cancer takes a huge financial toll, and a lot of times patients are left not knowing what to do. So that is something else we can help with. We can also help with the emotional, sort of mental emotional side of that. So getting people connected with support groups. They can be peer-to-peer, one-on-one sort of support. We can get them connected with in-person counseling, therapy, and even in-person support groups or online support groups. There's a lot of different options. And really, as Komen navigators, we will stick with the patient for as long as they're needed. So for some patients, that can be as simple as connecting them with one resource. And others, that means walking them through a more stressful situation. Say they lost their job, and there's just a lot more touch points that have to happen to help that patient get what they need so that they can do their treatment and not have that stress.
And Caitlin, do you provide this? What geography does Patient Navigator cover?
Sure.
Is it
So
US, North America?
US,
Could you clarify that for us?
yes, the US, any states within the US. Yes.
Okay, great. My experience was very different with a patient navigator. Even now that I've done so much work with Komen, I'm excited to hear about the things that they offer, and I just wish I had known this back when I really needed it, but I'm glad to know it's there because this MBC journey, there's a lot of ups and downs, and I'll be showing into that support service that Komen offers. So thanks for the explanation.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about care coordination in patient navigation, especially for those living with metastatic breast cancer. Can you tell us exactly what is care coordination and how is it done?
Sure. So I'm going to speak from a Komen patient care center navigation perspective. So a lot of times there's a lot of confusion involved when it comes to care coordination. As a Komen patient navigator, I'm not helping patients make treatment decisions. I'm connecting them with the people who help them to make those treatment decisions. So for me, what that looks like and what I have done is connecting them with their care team members that they need to collaborate with, that they need to speak with to get the care they needed. So for instance, I worked with a patient last month, an MBC patient last month, who had no idea that she had navigators in her actual treatment facility. She had no idea the difference between a surgeon and a medical oncologist. She didn't know who to talk to, and no one was really guiding her through that. So she didn't even know what treatment she was supposed to have. So I reached out to the facility, got in touch with the nurse navigator, explained the situation, was able to have that nurse navigator reach out to the patient and get her on track. And I know you probably know this from your experience. In those beginning moments of being diagnosed, it's like we call that the fire hose time. You are blasted with information, with treatment regimens, with tests and blood tests and all the screenings you could think of, that there's so much that you can forget, and your mind's whirling, the emotions are there. So to me, care coordination is to help those patients stay on track and to know what's happening, to have, be that advocate for them and help them to be that best advocate for themselves and kind of empower them as they move along their treatment.
Yeah, I've had similar experience speaking with people, especially friends who were diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. They had the lumpectomy, they're taking tamoxifen, all prescribed by their breast surgical oncologist.
Mm,
And they have no one who's really surveilling them for reoccurrence. And I just think there's a lot of disconnect there. So this is good information for everyone on the phone. You know, one thing about being diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, breast touches a lot of women and will touch a lot of women in your circle or friends of friends. And oftentimes they will start coming to you as, you thrive with breast cancer. People will come to you and ask you for advice. And this is great advice, just getting connected with a co-navigator. So you can be paired with a patient data very quickly wherever you've chosen to get treatment. I know in some of the larger centers and where I personally am treated, I got a medical on first. Now, this was after a de novo diagnosis when I actually stent vertebrae fracture and found out that way that I had breast. So I had her, and then she referred me around. She referred me to the breast surgical oncologist. I've also been connected to, she wanted me to have a primary care physician in her palliative care who, they just help manage my side effects. And, and to get used to having that many players in your on a team, it can be difficult to know who to contact for what. So, Caitlin, her colleague, great advocates for you and helping you determine what type of doctor you take this particular complaint to.
absolutely.
So, Caitlin, in your opinion, how often should a patient meet with a navigator?
Sure. So this is actually, I think, one of the cool things about the Patient Care Center Navigation Program. We cater to the needs of the patient. So, like I was kind of talking about before, sometimes that's as simple, you have a well-established MBC patient. I'm thinking specifically of a woman I worked with a couple months ago who was in like year 5 of living with MBC. And so she knows her medication regimen. She's got disability, so she's good with her finances. She's got transportation, all the things she needs, but she doesn't really leave her house, as a lot of MBC patients don't, just to prevent any sort of, there's just a higher risk for infection, for sickness. And she just was feeling very lonely, very tiny rural town, and emotions were just starting to get the best of her. So there's not a physical place I can send her to because she's in such a rural area. She has to travel far to get treatment anyway. So I was able to connect her with our NBC Facebook group. Komen has a private NBC Facebook support group. And because she used a computer perfectly fine, that was a great way for her to connect. And that was kind of our last touch point. That was kind of just that little extra thing she needed. And that she was pretty good. Now, there are some patients who I have unfortunately, some very young MBC patients who have full-time jobs and children, and a lot of them single moms, and they have to quit their jobs. They lose half or all of their income. And so there's a lot of pieces that need to be put into place so that they can get their treatment and get on with their life and live it. And so those touch points are more frequent, and we may hang on to them a little bit longer. Now, in both cases, it's very important. I want to mention this. Each patient that I work with always knows at the end of our sort of initial, chat, kind of how we're helping them, that they can always reach out with any needs in the future. It's not like a one and done. You can't reach out to Caitlin again. You can't reach out to, whoever. You can always call us. You can call the helpline, which I know we're going to provide that information as well, the contact number for that. So there are helpline navigators that can connect with people there. They can then send patients on to patient navigation if there's more long-term needs. So there's always going to be someone available at the end of that phone call to help with whatever's happening. So that's never going to end. These services are always going to be available to patients. How long they need the help, it just varies.
And that is in the chat, the number for the helpline, as well as an email address for them, which we will cover again before we wrap today, because it is so important to know that you always have someone you can call. So,
Yes.
and yes, when you call the Komen helpline, you will first be working with just a helpline navigator who will then engage patient navigation on your behalf. Is that correct, Caitlin?
That is correct. So sometimes the needs that a patient might have might just be answering a question like, hey, what's the website for this grant that I'm looking for? And that's all they need. A lot of times that helpline navigator can connect them to that, and that's all they need. But if that helpline navigator determines, after speaking with the patient, that they could greatly benefit from more in-depth, detailed patient navigation, more on the long term, that's when a referral will be sent for a patient navigator, and then they're assigned to one of us.
Okay. We have another question, and this question is, besides prayer, what can I, as a family member, do after the cancer has spread?
You should answer
So
that one
this is
first.
near and dear to me. But I am living, and frankly, I am living pretty well, more than 3.5 years after my stage 4 diagnosis. So the outlook for someone who receives a metastatic breast cancer diagnosis, whether that is a recurrence or whether that is at your very first diagnosis, your stage 4, that's what we call de novo, is getting better and better. So there are new classifications of drugs that have now been out 6-7 years that are really changing the trajectory and the survivability for someone with this disease. So the first thing I would say, yes, please pray. But the first thing I would do is I would be very encouraging to this person, to your family member or friend, that there are women who have been living with this disease for 20 years. So this diagnosis no longer means, the beginning of a short goodbye. This people who are living and thriving with this disease. And if I think your, Komen can certainly put your loved one in touch with women like me who are in fact thriving, just to provide, our outlook and, what the first however many years of our diagnosis have been. Now, there always are ups and downs. Not every day is great. And I don't want anyone to think that I believe that. I have a lot of rough days, but the good ones I try to make really good. So I think encouraging this person, if they can no longer to work. I know for me, that was a huge part of my identity, was my career, and I gave that up. And I've really had to find myself again. And I've found myself through hobbies, through volunteering, all the books that I bought and I put in the bookshelf, and I go, someday I'm going to read that. Well,
Yes.
I've been working on that. I've found new things that I enjoy doing. I've found out I love to bake, which was not something I really knew much how much I loved it before my diagnosis. So I think as a family member, there's a lot of positivity that you can share. But secondly, I think you need to be sure that your loved one feels comfortable with the care they're receiving. If they're questioning the doctors or don't feel like they've been heard, you can play a role in researching perhaps another local doctor to go and get a second opinion from. Most doctors do not care at all if you get a second opinion, and they will encourage it. So those are a couple of things that you can do. Just be there to help with that. I have a friend who every time she comes over, she checks what light bulbs need to be changed.
Mm.
Because I have cancer in so many bones, she doesn't want me on a ladder.
Mm.
Well, great. So find unique things like that that can be difficult after this diagnosis that were certainly not difficult before, and see if you can step in to assist with those. I think that would go a long way.
Mm.
And okay, so 2 questions about cost. I think we had one earlier that I did not address. So Caitlin, can you tell us about the Komen helpline and the Komen patient navigators? Is there a cost associated with this? Does insurance pay it? How do people access this service?
Yes. So there have been some new things pop up in the insurance world and the billing and coding world, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But first of all, Komen's patient care center navigators, we offer free personalized navigation services to patients, not only patients, caregivers, and their support people. So that kind of differs from what someone may receive in their treatment facility. So the treatment facility I used to work in before Komen, we had a nurse navigator, social worker, and a patient navigator who was me. We did not bill people, but as of, I think earlier earlier this year, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid have recently published new billing codes for the 2024 physician fee schedule to pay for principal illness navigation or PIN services. So that would be billing codes for navigation. So really, this just means that patients may have cost sharing. So AKA a copay, which could be up to 20% of that instance of navigation that happens within and underneath the practice. So that's different than Komen. Plain and clear, we offer free personalized care. So a patient does not have to produce any sort of insurance benefit information to us. We are going to help connect them to resources no matter what the insurance situation. And sometimes that means helping them to get insurance, but that's a different thing. But no, we do not charge, although people might start seeing if they do have navigation services in their treatment facility, so people that they would see in person, there may start to be cost sharing for that.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that
Yeah.
clarification and
Yeah.
that update. And the helpline is available to anyone in the US. And by
Yes, correct.
anyone, we don't mean just patients.
Correct.
The helpline is also there for support, family support. Also there to help guide someone on, my wife, my sister, my friend received this diagnosis. What are the first 10 things we need to do? They're there for it. Now, I don't know if
Yes.
they have a list. I made that up, but they can help you. They'll
Yes.
tell you 10 things to do for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of times people are too emotionally overwhelmed to make that call to us. So I'm currently working with a patient's husband because she's just so overwhelmed. She's tired of talking about cancer. So one of the ways that he has found to help, because I know a lot of times for partners and close family members, they want to help and they have no clue what to do. They just want to fix it. And that's a way that they're helping. And that is so empowering for him. And there are so many things he can help her with now that she doesn't even have to worry about because he's the one connecting with us. So I encourage any family member, support team, whoever, call us. We can help with resources.
And so do those resources include housing? We have a question about housing.
Sure. So housing can be very tricky because it is usually state by state, sometimes county by county. What we can do is help connect people to, we've helped people to get into shelters if there's an immediate need for housing. But none of this is guaranteed. I will tell you right now, just honestly, in the nation, there is a huge housing shortage. I've called many counties to help try to get patients connected to like government subsidized housing, and they've stopped even having waiting lists. So we've had to get very creative in trying to connect people with housing. So yes, we can help get people connected to housing. We cannot guarantee that we will get people housing. Just unfortunately, that's kind of the situation we're in. But we can absolutely connect them to that resource, get them connected to caseworkers who can get that application going, and kind of be the middleman between them and the caseworker. I've done that before, helping them to understand the next steps in the process. That is something we can help with, but we as Komen, we cannot provide them housing, just getting them connected to resources they might have in their area.
All right. So Caitlin, I want to just kind of change the view on this a little bit. What are the most common questions you get, from someone or family member of someone who's been diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer? Give us some of the top questions you have, and then we can maybe have a little discussion on some of
Sure.
those.
Yeah, so I find those to be kind of twofold. And of course, that's not cut and dry, but mainly they're in kind of two realms. One of them being the financial part of it. What financial assistance is available to me? How can I get paid if I have to stop working? How do I apply for Social Security disability or short-term disability? How do I do FMLA? Am I eligible for FMLA? And there's just a lot within that financial realm because that is pretty jarring having to switch your life over completely financially. And then the other realm of that is the emotional, mental side of it. So where can I get connected to receive support? Who accepts my insurance in my area that I can see a therapist? Who in the world can I see that's not in person because I want to do telehealth? I don't want to go out anywhere. Those I'd say are our most commonly asked questions when it comes to people who are patients with MBC.
All right, thank you. So that was interesting because as you were talking through those questions or those topics, we had a question come in that was like, can you help me around employment concerns, filing for
Mm.
Social Security? So yes, you came to the right spot if you need that kind of information. We're going to go back over, I'm just going to give you the number right now for the helpline. So you can jot that down. It's 1-877-465-6636. So 1-877-465-6636, or email helpline@komen.org. So as a patient who I have been working through this, this leaving a job and going on FMLA and, finding my path through disability and insurance and all of that. I do want to say, unfortunately, there are waiting periods around this. So if you have recently received an MBC diagnosis, go ahead and educate yourself on the process now, because it is not a super quick process. But I worked for corporate America. I went on FMLA. After 90 days, I still had my insurance. And I was very fortunate that I did get paid through FMLA. And then I went on short-term disability. My company provided that benefit to me. I received 66.67777% of my base salary. And then once I went on short-term disability, I initiated going on Social Security disability. I knew my long-term disability plan required that I would also be on the government Social Security disability. So I began that process. So then you have 5 months, is that right, Caitlin, that you
Mm.
wait between applying for Social Security disability to when you start beginning to get money. And, there's also all these timing things on, can you work during this period of time, etc. I'm not an expert. So I think you need to have a conversation, if that's a question of yours, with the navigator. But then 2 years after you're approved for Social Security disability, you go on Medicare, which I was very glad to be approved for Medicare. However, I had a gap of 8 months where I didn't have a plan for health insurance. And you all know how much you lay awake at night and worry if you're in this position with this diagnosis. So I'm just going to tell you, take some research. It takes some time. You're going to have a lot of questions. You're going to be calling Caitlin or peers a lot. Start it now, because that can help you kind of gauge, okay, I may be starting a new treatment. I may need to go ahead and stop working for a period of time. Have a plan in place, because without a plan, you're just kind of running in circles, and you're not really getting anything accomplished. I did that for a little, I wasn't as on the ball as I should have, and I really regretted it, because then I had very expensive premiums to cover my health insurance until I qualified for Medicare. Let's see. So a question to me, what's been most helpful for me while managing my team? It is self-education. So I've done a lot of reading. I am weird that I introduce myself to other patients sometimes in the waiting room where I am. So, because I find if you can share information, I do belong to some online support groups as well as Facebook groups. Having a sounding board where you're not actually having to reach out to a doctor, but just says, like, my nurse told me this. Have you heard this before? And for someone to say no, or, oh yeah, I've heard that. That's true. Can just kind of a first pass at comparing information, I think, is really helpful. So building a community around yourself to do that helps you know what you're hearing from your care team, who's managing, if it's similar to how anyone else is managing these obviously different areas and levels of care that you need, is important. So I'd say kind of build a little group around you who can be your sounding board, and who you can do the same for them. So we are going to shout out, we have a gal here who's a 25-year cancer survivor and 7 years with stage 4 breast cancer. So this goes back to my point when someone said, besides praying, what can I do? You can share these positive stories. I can't tell you how much it helps to hear stories like this when you are looking at a Google stat that says you're going to live 29.6 months. So that's not always true. In fact, the numbers are exponentially growing. Feed on this, we've got someone who has 25 years of survivability under her belt after a diagnosis, and now seven years with stage 4. And she goes for a PET scan every 6 months, and she says she's proud of herself. And I'm going to say, I am proud of you too. That is awesome. And okay, so this is very important. I feel that my family does not get that I have stage 4. I decided not even to tell them anymore when I had my checkups, because now they now stop the wishing me good luck and follow up. This is hard for me. What do you suggest I do to help that I lost this support group in the family? Friends have been more receptive than my own family. It hurts. Thanks.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's important that you build that group of friends, because you do need someone who says good luck. And while we have all been there, we're waiting for a PET scan result that's about 24 hours later than you thought you were going to get your answers. You need someone that you can call and just say, I can't think about this anymore. Let's talk about, let's make plans to get together for lunch, and let's just get my mind off the subject. So you've got to have those people, whether they're your family or friends. And I'm kind of a smarty pants. So what I'd probably do if I were you and my family wasn't asking me about my checkups or anything, after a great checkup, I'd probably put up streamers, buy some balloons, and get a cake and say, we're celebrating that I had yet another good checkup. And, living with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis for 7 years should be a celebration and not a pain in anyone's ass. So that's what I would do. Now, I know that's a little rough around the edges. I never claimed not to be, but there are kinder, gentler ways to share that with them if you even want to. At some point, you have to do what makes you feel good and your mental health. So, if you're happy not sharing it with them, I wouldn't. It sounds like you're hurt with that. And so I try to bring them back in the fold. That's me. Caitlin, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so from a navigation standpoint, I'd say this is a great opportunity to allow us to connect you to, like you said, you have your group of people, maybe connecting with those who are walking the same road that you are. So there's a really great peer-to-peer mentor program that is online that we can connect people with, and it is free, and they connect you and match you up with someone who has the same diagnosis as you. So someone else walking the MBC journey who gets all the things, and you mentioned before the longevity, it just keeps growing. The amount of clinical trials that we have and the different options, the different treatment lines that are now coming out for MBC patients. It's almost like people forget you have cancer. And that has come up. Like, people tell it, well, you don't look like you have cancer. It's like, well, okay, that's nice. But, this is still something that is very much a part of my life. I still need support. So we would love to connect you with support groups. We can check in your area to see if there's anything that you can be a part of physically. We can connect you to something online. We can send you resources to help with that part of it. We can even connect you with counseling, therapy, if that's something you're open to. So yeah, I would say reach out to the helpline, and we can get you connected with some resources to have kind of that group of people who get it and who want to be part of community with you.
No, that's great advice. And see, there are more resources. So you don't have to be the ultra extrovert like me and introduce yourself to women in the waiting room. Komen can help you with that. So there is some great insight here about there are rules about income when you're on disability, and when you're on Medicaid. And so it is important that you connect with someone who can guide you through that. So thank you, Christy, for sharing that with us. That's a really good reminder. So a question here, when did I decide I would no longer work? So the first year of my diagnosis was absolute hell. More radiation than palliative for my bones, surgeries, and I tell you, I have every side effect on every drug. Oh, it can impact your heart. Oh, guess what? Yep, got that, and the nausea and the diarrhea so the first year was just hell, and I had never been sick really in my life. So I didn't even know, like, I was, I probably in my mind was sicker than I really was because it was just not how I was accustomed to feeling. So at that point, I did some planning with my financial planner. This was right, kind of COVID was still going on. I wasn't, like work was very difficult. I was executive salesperson. I was trying to do everything, over the phone, over Zoom. And my boss retired, and I was just like, wow, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. So I sold my house and found a little rental, and I've just made a lot of changes that some of which I was really dreading, but they have been very freeing to me. And it is a much um, lower cost lifestyle. And I was able to make it work. I was blessed with a great career and I just fell into it. So I'm not taking credit, but I had some opportunity to save some money. And so it worked for me. And I really decided one day I am no longer going to die of cancer. I'm going to live with cancer. I'm going to make peace with this beast. And it changed my whole life. It really did. Just having the power to say, I am more powerful than this disease. It's a parasite. It requires a host. I'm the host, I'm in charge. And I'm going to go and I'm going to experience things and I'm going to meet new people and I'm going to read those books. And, at that point, I just was willing to live in a different way to just not have the stress of work and work travel and all those things we worry about with being immunocompromised. So that was what it was for me. It's a very personal decision. It really meant me hanging up a big part of my personality and myself because my career was very important to me. And, I found a great counselor to talk to through my cancer center. So, and I know that that's something that Caitlin can help with if you need someone to kind of help you make these decisions or build the rubric so you can say, all right, when I start feeling like ABC, I'm going to think more strongly about leaving my career or leaving my job or going part-time. And Caitlin, am I right that you guys help with that?
Yes. So really what we can do, because I have had patients ask me, should I just stop working? And that's not a decision I can make. And you touched on this a little bit. That's really something that you should discuss even with your care team. So expectations for treatment, what kind of side effects can I expect if you're just starting treatment? Um, Also speaking with us who can connect you with financial resources and getting those things moving. So there's a lot of pieces to that question, I think. Should I stop working? We won't make that decision for you, but we will help you move in the direction that you need to be to make that decision. Whether that's providing financial resources, getting you connected with your team, that care coordination piece, um, so that you have that clear head and you can feel like you're empowered financially, mentally, emotionally, to make that decision.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. let's see. That's great. So we have someone who said she had a NBC group leader, told her, told her that she had 3 to 5 years to left to live. And she's like, no one has the right to tell me. And you are exactly right. No one has the right to tell you. And if you want to know, feel free to ask a doctor and don't really expect a clear response. That's been my experience. So a question around PET scans and Medicare. So this particular Bonnie had has gone on Medicare. They have paid for 3 PET scans, and now everything is a CT. Caitlin, do you have any insights to that?
So the question, they're
The
not covering more PET
question
scans.
is Medicare covering PET scans? Will they cover them? She's getting PET scan. She got 3 under Medicare, and now they're not going to cover them, and
Mm.
she's getting a CT.
Yeah, that is a common thing that comes up. A lot of times that PET scan has to switch to a CT or an MRI. I've seen that a lot. I will say though, I have worked with different imaging offices that help with grants. If, a doctor is still ordering a PET scan, that's what they're going to order. But it's going to cost X amount of dollars. That's where we can maybe kind of help with some financial assistance resources. So get them connected with different grants that might help with that. But yeah, a lot of times, if Medicare is saying they're not going to pay for any more PET scans, it's hard to get them to do that. They're going to want to pay for the less expensive exams or the less expensive scanning or imaging. So, but yeah, sometimes there's ways that we can work around that. We can even, work out payment plans with the imaging office. A lot of hospitals will have in their charity programs or financial assistance. That's something they can work out with their financial counselors. So there are things we can look into to help remedy that cost. Not making promises, but that's not just the too bad, so sad end of it all.
Yeah. There are, I don't know with Medicare, but certainly my doctors have had to do a lot of appeals over the years to get procedures or treatments approved. And I would find out how important that is to your doctor. It may be where your metastatic disease is, etc. They may be like, we're good with doing this and every other time and a PET scan, and then that could really lower the cost and maybe, I don't know. What about, Caitlin, what about like the Medicare supplements? Will they cover this if Medicare
Mm.
says no?
I'm not really familiar with what the supplements would cover imaging wise. Sorry, I'm not sure about that. That's a little
Yeah,
out
all
of my
right.
realm
Well, I
there.
have
Sorry.
Medicare Advantage and I know they do cover.
Mm.
Now, I had one and now I'm having one Friday since I've been on Medicare. So I don't know how much they're covering 2. I know
Mm.
that. So I don't know. We'll have to dig into that and perhaps get some more, find out if that's cut and dry or if that's as specifically to where the disease is, etc. To find that out.
Yeah, and really patients can also they should connect with their financial counselor at where they're receiving treatment. So they might not have a financial navigator, but there's going to be someone in their financial office that they can talk to help kind of unwind um, their insurance coverage and what options they might have.
Okay, great. So yeah, we will, let's see. So this is Bonnie. Casey, if we can take a note to just see if there's a way we can help her. I think standard, a lot of metastatic breast cancer patients do get PET scans every 3 months. And I did that for a few years. And now I've been stable for a year. And so we're kind of pushing it to 4 months. And that's a discussion my doctor is comfortable with. And just for me, I feel like I've had so much radiation. I don't really want to keep pumping radiation into me if I can, avoid it. So that's just me personally, but I would find out what your doctor's comfortable with too, because sometimes, they're okay with what Medicare is saying and don't think it puts you at risk at all. But I know you're going to have that little guy on your shoulder in your brain, and sometimes that's not worth it either. So, all right. So there is a question about what types of cancer, can you provide for or are these services provided for? We know breast cancer is covered, but is ovarian cancer covered as well? Or if not, can the helpline kind of help link patients to other nonprofits similar to Komen who maybe focus on their type of cancer?
Absolutely. We've had actually pretty recently a patient called, I think it was for a different cancer site than breast cancer, and our helpline was able to direct them to basically a supportive service for that specific cancer site. So we're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to connect you with somewhere to start to receive help for your specific cancer.
Yeah. And, if you have been proven or suspect to have been carrying a genetic mutation that created this cancer, and oftentimes they don't just carry breast cancer or one certain kind of cancer. I know my mutation also has a link to prostate cancer, thyroid cancer, and colon cancer. So I have a 22-year-old son. I am working on getting him approved to get the genetic testing to see if he also carries this mutation. So the person who was asking for your daughter, I think I'm going to get this done at no cost through my cancer center, since mom has a confirmed genetic mutation. So if you're worried about your daughter, and maybe, we all are, if we have daughters and we've been given this diagnosis, please start educating your daughters now from the age of about 10 that they need to be doing self-exams and that they need to know their bodies and that they're going to know their bodies better than anybody else. It's just a strong message that will teach them to be better advocates when they become of an age that this will be important. But women are being diagnosed, not many, but some are, before the age of 20 with metastatic breast cancer. So we've got to make sure our daughters, our nieces, take this very seriously. So there's a question here. Is everybody with metastatic breast cancer on treatment? And I think no, because I've read about women who say, you know what, the treatment is worse than the disease, and I'm not going to live through the side effects anymore. I'm just going to go find the best quality of life I can. And, but I think that your average oncologist will tell you that if you have metastatic breast cancer, you will be in treatment for the rest of your life. And that it cannot be cured, but it can be treated. And see, those are words to cling on to if you have this diagnosis. Like, a lot of things can't be, I have dry eyes, they can't be cured, but I can put eye drops in every night and they don't bother me. So treated is good, right? It's maybe it's not first place, but it's good. So let's grab onto that. It really is trying to find some positivity. Let's see. So I think it's personal choice on treatment, but I think most people are. See, if you will read through the chat, you're going to see some success stories. we just have a swam with dolphins, right? Like that's a bucket list for almost everybody. I will probably never achieve it because I have weird fears about stuff like that. But, you know, you have to find what you just, even if it's little things, you know, I wanted to learn how to make pickles. So I found out I did it, just little things like that, that you've always kind of been curious about. Go explore them. It will bring so much joy to your life and, hopefully take up some brain space that doesn't just put you in this constant worry because I've been there and it's a terrible way to live. So I pray that you find something positive to grab a hold of. Um, All right, this is great. This is from Judy. Judy Watts. She said the one thing she really had to advocate for herself was to see a palliative care specialist. And she had to kind of educate her oncologist that she needed one and why. And she says it's been life-changing. And it depends on your supplements. Some it's covered, some it isn't. But I have a palliative care doctor and I love him because he always has new strategies. Nausea is one of my biggest issues. And he always has new strategies and new options for me and taking this and then this and all of this. And he has changed my life as well, Judy. So that's a good one to ask for. So guys, I am sorry. We are running out of time. So we've got about 2 minutes left. And Caitlin, I would love for you to just, spend 30 seconds or a minute and tell us what you think from an outsider looking in, but you've got a very close seat at the table. What's the best advice you could give someone who is living with this diagnosis or who has just received this diagnosis?
I think the one thing really, and it starts with this, is they are not alone. They may not have friends or family or anyone near them, but if they're going to reach out to Komen, we are there to walk alongside them. I found I'd heard a really cool quote from the Stand Up to Cancer campaign that goes on. And I wrote it down and I stuck it here on my desk. And it's, you may feel powerless, but know that there's power in taking action. And that may sound kind of cheesy and cliche, but action doesn't mean going to war for something all the time. It doesn't mean, completely changing your life for whatever reason. It can mean making that phone call, sending the email, saying, I need help. I don't know what to do. I just need someone to walk alongside this with me. And that's what I, as a Komen Patient Care Center navigator, would love MBC patients to know, is that we are here for you. Please call us. Please reach out to us. There is a lot of power in that.
And my very best advice is educate yourself. Do not educate yourself with .coms. Educate yourself with .edus or .orgs, because the information is much more recent and thorough. So educate yourself. You are in charge. This is your life. Your doctor is not in charge. It is okay to question a doctor. It is okay to get a second opinion. It is okay to ask for a palliative care specialist or another member of your care team that you think you need. If you do not know if you have kind of the right people pulled together for your care team, then you don't. And you need to call the Komen line and you need to find out this. You deserve this. You are not just a number. You personally deserve to have the very best care available to you in your area. And you need to let Komen help you fill in the holes by telling you what to ask for. You have to advocate for yourself. No one's going to do it for you. And take the bull by the horns, right? This is not a death sentence. This is a wake-up call to go and live life. So do it. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. But it's really important that we support one another. It is very important that to the ones around you who you can say what you need, you tell them what you need if you're not getting it. So thanks for joining us. Go have an amazing week and weekend. These are days we live, ladies.
I'm going to jump on here real quick because first off, you're getting lots of love, Carly and Caitlin. You got your little heart emojis floating across the screen. There's a bunch of people hopping into the chat to say thank you. We know Carly and Caitlin are fabulous. That's why we're so grateful for them today. But we had a one comment, Liz Brown. She's celebrating 5 years this August with De Novo MBC to her bones. So congratulations, Liz. Thank you so much for joining today and sharing that with us. So happy to have you and everyone else. Somebody else said Komen navigators are amazing angels. 100% right. They really are. So if anyone takes anything away from today, if you have a question, even if it's a what does this complicated term mean, all the way to, oh my gosh, I need huge help figuring out who to call, what to go to, what to do with this symptom, please give us a call. 1-877-465-6636. Or if you're an introvert like me and you don't like talking on the phone, email helpline@komen.org. It doesn't get much easier than that. And we'll make sure we direct you wherever it is you need to go. So with all of that, thank you so much to Caitlin and to Carly. You guys rocked it today. And you attendees kept us busy, okay? There was lots of questions and comments. It was wonderful and fabulous. It's so great when we get that kind of interaction. We're grateful for it. So today's session was recorded and it's going to be posted to our YouTube and our landing page soon. And if you registered for the event, it'll be sent right to your inbox as well. So keep an eye out. Feel free to share it. Maybe it'll help those family and friends who aren't quite getting it all the way, send them this recording. You never know what'll help break through. So once again, I just have to acknowledge our 2024 sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be able to bring you these great conversations and this great content. So our premier sponsors, GE Healthcare, AstraZeneca, Merck, and Gilead, and our signature sponsors, Walgreens and Daiichi Sankyo. So please help us by completing the survey, which I forgot to put in the chat. Give me 1 second and I'm going to do that. And it'll also be emailed to you, so have no fear. Please fill it out. I review them personally, all right? I'm the one who picks the topics. We design the program with feedback from you guys. So it's really important that you're honest about what we're doing right, wrong, and otherwise, so we can make sure we're getting you content that's valuable. The next event in the series will be in September, on September 20th, and will be a part 1 on personalized medicine. We're going to hear from Dr. Milana Dolezal with Stanford. It's going to be kind of a 101 introductory to personalized medicine or precision medicine, depending on what language you like to use. So if you're interested, make sure you register. And thank you today. Thank you for coming and making this event possible. Everyone stay safe and stay connected.
Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.